Hi everybody, I'm Dan with Vox Electronics, and today we're going to be installing the Vox ADAS ADVBSD30 into this Honda vehicle. Let's get into it. The first thing we want to do before we touch a vehicle is read the installation manual from start to finish. It's going to tell us where on the vehicle we're working, what components we're going to be installing, and everything we could possibly need to know about doing this installation. All right, now that we've read the installation manual, we're going to start looking at the vehicle and identifying where on the vehicle we're going to install these sensors. In every one of the ADVBSD30 kits, we include this really good installation tool. This part simulates where the sensor would be mounted, and we want to align this part of the tool straight back from the vehicle body. Right here on this vehicle, we can see that if we place this alignment tool on the bumper, we have a nice flat surface where we can install the sensor, and you can see that the alignment tool is pointing straight back. Now that we've identified a really good spot for that sensor, we're going to take some blue painter's tape and we're going to mark out that spot on the bumper. So once we remove it from the vehicle, we know exactly where we're going to install it. All right, the sensor needs to be installed between 20 inches and 40 inches from the ground. So let's identify here. We have 20 inches here. We have 40 inches up here. We've already identified that this area is a good location for the sensor. So we're going to take our blue painter's tape and we're just going to mark that spot so that once we remove the bumper, we know exactly where that sensor needs to go. All right, before we remove this bumper, we want to remember everything we did on one side of the vehicle, we're going to mirror to the other side of the vehicle. We're installing sensors on both sides. So let's make sure we measure, mark, and tape both sides of the bumper before we remove it from the vehicle. Okay, now that the bumper is off the vehicle and onto this table for us to work, let's talk about the two different types of mounts that we include in this kit. The first mount is a stick-on type mount that sticks to the inside of the plastic bumper. The second type of mount is a metal mount that attaches to the vehicle body behind the bumper. First, we're going to talk about the stick-on mount. The way this mount is designed is that the sensor fits inside of it, and then there's two-sided tape that allows you to stick it to the inside of the plastic bumper. We always want to make sure that we clean and prep the area first so that we get this mount to stick onto the bumper and we don't have any issues with it coming off. Okay, now that the bumper is clean, let's talk about assembling the sensor into the mount. The first thing we want to do is look at the back side of the sensor. These sensors are sided, which means the right sensor needs to go on the right side of the vehicle and the left sensor needs to go onto the left side. Also on the back of the sensor is an up arrow. We need to make sure that the up arrow is pointing up whenever the sensor is installed onto the vehicle. So we're going to take the sensor, press it into the bracket, and attach the screws to the back. Then we'll stick it to the bumper. Also included in the kit is an adhesion promoter. This, we want to wipe the inside of the bumper just like we're cleaning it off, and this will help the sensor mount stick to the bumper properly. Once we have everything wiped down, we're going to remove the red backing from the adhesive tape, and we're going to stick the sensor to the inside of the bumper. We want to make sure that we press and hold firmly for 30 to 60 seconds so that the sensor mount sticks properly and it won't fall off. Now that we have the sensor installed on the right side, we're going to mirror everything we did onto the left side of the vehicle. Let's talk about using the metal mounting bracket. This bracket is designed to be installed on the vehicle body behind the plastic bumper. It has 4 adjustable arms so that we can adjust it to the vehicle surface, and we can also find the angle required for installing the sensor. It also has a fine-tune angle adjustment here on the surface that allows us to fine-tune that sensor once the bracket is installed on the vehicle. So let's look at how we install this bracket. We're going to use our alignment tool to make sure that the sensor would be aligned properly once the bracket is installed. So we have a really good location here. We're going to take our bracket and we're just going to bend these metal arms so that we can secure it properly to the vehicle body. Now that we have the bracket installed properly, we can go ahead and secure it to the vehicle. With the bracket secured to the vehicle, we remove the sensor mounting plate and we secure it to the sensor itself. One thing you need to keep in mind is that these sensors are sided, which means the right sensor needs to go on the right side of the vehicle and the left sensor needs to go onto the left. Also on the back is an arrow pointing up. We need to make sure that this arrow points up once the sensor is secured to the vehicle. So we'll take the sensor, we'll install the cable through the mounting plate, and we'll secure the mounting plate using the provided screws. Once the sensor is secured to the mounting bracket, we need to check two things. The first thing we need to check is to make sure that the sensor is perpendicular to the ground. We also need to set the angle. So to make sure that the sensor is perpendicular, we can do that using a leveling app on our phone. We can take our phone, we can place it against the sensor, and we make sure that it's perpendicular to the ground. The next thing we need to do is set the angle of the sensor. We do that using the alignment tool. So we'll take the alignment tool, we'll place it against the sensor, and we make sure that tool is pointing straight back from the vehicle. Once we find the angle, we'll secure the sensor using the provided screws. Now that we have the sensor mounted on this side, we're going to mirror everything we did to the other side of the vehicle. The control module should be mounted on the left or the right side. We want to make sure that it's out of the way and hidden at all times. So let's take apart this vehicle and find a good spot to mount the control module. Now with the control module location selected, let's talk about wire harnesses. The control module main wire harness needs to be connected to the left turn signal, the right turn signal, and the reverse wire in the vehicle. We're going to identify all of those circuits here at the back. They can be found generally at the taillight or the reverse lights. Also, each sensor needs to be connected to the main wire harness. So once you've installed the control box, you'll route all of your wire harnesses to the control box, and then the main wire harness runs up to the front of the vehicle. With the installation completed in the rear and the wire harness run to the front, let's talk about some of the components we'll install up here at the front of the vehicle. First, a GPS antenna. This tells the system the speed that the vehicle is traveling. We have a speaker that gives an audible warning whenever a vehicle is in the blind spot. And then we have these LED indicators. Let's talk about these first. The LED indicator should be installed somewhere up here on the dashboard within view of the side view mirrors. That way, when a driver is checking the mirror to see if the lane is clear, they'll see if the LED is illuminated. When a vehicle is in the blind spot, the LED will light up solid. If the vehicle is in the blind spot and you activate your turn signal, the LED will begin to flash rapidly. Let's take a look at some of the places we can install this LED indicator. One of the best places is right here on the pillar of the vehicle. This is a nice flat surface. It's within view of the side view mirror, and it's a nice easy spot for installation. Next, let's talk about the speaker. The speaker should be installed underneath the dashboard. It doesn't have to be visible to the driver, but we do want to make sure that it is accessible. On the side of the speaker is a volume control switch. This switch can be set from high to low or even off if the driver doesn't want an audible warning. The warning is activated anytime there's a vehicle in the blind spot and the turn signal is on. That way the driver gets the visual indicator on the dashboard as well as an audible tone. Finally, let's talk about the GPS antenna. The GPS antenna should be installed on or underneath the dashboard so that it has a clear view to the sky and there is no metal blocking the antenna. The antenna is used to tell the blind spot system what the speed of the vehicle is. Using GPS allows this system to be universal. It doesn't have to be vehicle specific, so we can install this system on any vehicle that comes into our shop. The GPS antenna includes a small LED on the cable that allows us to make sure that it has a GPS connection to the satellites, and we can make sure it's working before we complete our installation. Now that we've found locations for all of our components here at the front of the vehicle, let's go ahead and complete this installation. All right, now that we've installed all of the components here in the front of the vehicle, let's make sure this thing is working before we put it all back together. To test it, we put the key in the ignition, turn it to the on position, and make sure the LED indicators flash one time. If you get anything other than one flash, check the installation manual for the error code. Okay, now that we've completed our installation, we're going to take this vehicle on a test drive. On this vehicle, we've chosen to use the metal mounting brackets. Whenever we're using metal mounting brackets, I personally like to take the vehicle on a test drive before reinstalling the bumper. That tells me that the installation is correct before we assemble everything. If you're using the plastic mounting brackets, you're forced to install the bumper before the test drive. So let's get this thing out on the road and see how it performs. Okay, now it's time for our test drive. We're going to take this vehicle out onto the highway and we're going to see how the system performs. We're going to test all three functions of the blind spot warning system. First, blind spot detection, then we'll test the overtaking feature, and finally we'll test the rear cross traffic function. To test this system, we'll want to be on a road and make sure there's a vehicle that can pass us. And as you can see, when the vehicle passes us, the LED indicator is turned on solid. If we activate the turn signal, we'll get an audible warning and a flash to warn us that there's a vehicle in the blind spot zone. We want to test this functionality on both the left and the right side of the vehicle. Overtaking allows us to see if a vehicle has cleared our blind spot mode when we are the one passing. As you can see here, as the vehicle enters our blind spot, the LED indicator turns on. When the vehicle is clear, the LED indicator turns off. If we activate our turn signal, the LED will flash and we'll get our audible tone. The ADVBSD30 has a really great GPS controlled on-off function. What that does is it activates the system when you're driving above 15 miles per hour. That way, when you're sitting at a traffic light like this, you can't get any false warnings from traffic driving by at slow speeds. Okay, we're here in a parking lot and we're going to test the rear cross traffic function. Rear cross traffic detects a vehicle approaching from the left or the right as we're backing out of a parking spot. To test this function, we place the vehicle in reverse and we'll wait for another car to pass us in the rear. Thanks for watching our video of the installation of the Vox ADAS ADVBSD30. If you have any questions, you can go to our website at voxelectronics.com.